If you guys have any questions, let me know, and we'll unmute the mic. I don't want to have so much background noise. All right.
Could you enable screen sharing?
Sure, of course. That wasn't done. Okay, you should be able to share. You good? I think you're muted, so.
Just realized that. All right. So this is going to be a tutorial of a way you can bypass geofencing on a endpoint that is supposedly locked down. So bypassing geofencing without jailbreaking, without attaching an auxiliary GPS device, or using some special software solution that you can buy and connect. So I'm guessing most of the people in this room know what geofencing is already. You may have encountered it using a Lime scooter. For instance, if you try to drive into the area of a national monument on a Lime scooter, it will shut down and say, don't do that. So geofencing is either granting or denying access, permissions, or data transfer based on an object or user's perceived geolocation. Another example, instead of using GPS, IP would also technically count as geofencing, although that's a little more loosey-goosey. For instance, if you try to log into certain websites like OfferUp and you're not in the US, it'll say, sorry, you need to be in the US. And you can also apply geofencing in security policy. So geofencing can be used as a form of multi-factor authentication. Microsoft Authenticator has this as a feature. It's a sort of like where you are in addition to something you have, or somewhere you are in addition to something you have. It can be used for compliance. So certain data is regulated based on geolocational requirements. So for instance, if you are a government contractor dealing with military secrets, they probably don't want you opening up that data in the middle of Russia. And then there's geofencing for physical access. So a real life example I ran into, to open a certain gate with an app, I needed to have location services on and be within a certain perceived distance of the gate to send out the signal to open it. If you're too far, it just says get closer. So looking deeper into the example of Microsoft Authenticator, so when you log in, geolocational data is displayed to the user and sent to the administrator. This is sort of their newest release after, I believe this was a result of the Uber hack where the hacker simply spammed out a bunch of 2FA push notifications and people, you send out 10,000, some people just hit yes. Google Authenticator added this type 2 digits feature and also threw in this geolocation feature, which is, I still believe, in testing, last I checked. So on the administrator side, they can choose to determine location by IP address or by GPS coordinates. GPS coordinates, because it's not GPS, it's location services, which I'll go into detail in a sec. And then they can either require that they ping their location every hour or just once upon login. So real world example, this is a feature in testing for Microsoft. And then it can be applied to conditional access policy. So I think at this point it's just IP ranges and country blocks, but I imagine in the future this will get more stringent. And all of this, even if you lock down the endpoint, can be bypassed. So I'm going to walk through a fictional example of a company who decides to use geolocation to protect its data, and then how a hacker could theoretically bypass this defense. And before I launch into this example, disclaimer, all events, individuals, and companies in this example are completely fictional. If there's any similarity to real life events, individuals, or companies, that is purely a coincidence. So we'll be looking at the fictional company B-Mobile, which has an issue with SIM swapping. What SIM swappers will do is they will run into a B-Mobile store, steal the managerial tablet, and then using credentials that they probably had already purchased online or obtained through any means, are able to SIM swap as many victims as they possibly can in about 30 minutes. The security team has realized this, and to stop these hackers, they have decided to implement a geofencing policy using Microsoft Authenticator. So now, in order to be logged in as a manager, you need to be in a small block around the store. So introducing our threat actor, SIM Swapper Simon. He is a Remo tablet stealer. He uses it to SIM swap people and steal their crypto. Or if he doesn't have people to SIM swap, he'll sell it as a service for $5,000 per SIM swap. And he is not too pleased about this new geofencing update. So he tries to think of a solution. What about jailbreaking the Remo tablet? This is the classical way of GPS spoofing. You jailbreak the device so you can edit the data inside, and you change the values of the data to what you want. This would involve installing unauthorized software, and this gets unfortunately thwarted by jailbreak detection software, which these managerial tablets have. Okay, so what about using software? There's 1,000,001 different apps out there that you can put on a computer, connect it to a endpoint, a phone or tablet, and I believe the way the software works, if I understand correctly, is it basically says, I am a GPS device. Here is where we are at. And the iPhone or tablet says, okay. And there's many of these. There's WooTechie, PhoneGeek, iToolTab, and the list goes on. However, these get thwarted because there's a peripheral control policy for MTP and PTP. So data transfer is not allowed. Then there's GPS spoofing accessories. So first issue with these is they're expensive, and there's not too many brands of these, and a lot of them don't work. So it basically works the same way as the software I just showed, where it says, I am a GPS auxiliary device, and then here is our GPS data, which is faked data. But again, this runs into the same policy or the same issue with the peripheral control policy. So it can't be used to spoof the location of the managerial tablet. And then last, there's the GPS spoofing apps, which just don't work. So you can go onto the Apple Store and look for an app for GPS spoofing, and it will spoof location inside the app, but not anywhere else. They don't do anything besides that. They're pretty useless. And also, you can't install unauthorized software on these devices, so a moot point. So what can Simon do? He can't attach peripherals. he can't install new software, he can't jailbreak the device, and he doesn't want to sit in the store in which he just stole a tablet from for 30 minutes while he does his SIM swapping. So then he gets an idea. What about manipulating location services data? So what is location services? We don't have GPS, we call it GPS location, but it's really a mix of different signals on the airwaves. It's a mix of cellular, GPS, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth. So it uses cellular data. So for instance, if you have a phone and it's talking with Tower A and Tower B, and Tower A and B are in Topeka, Kansas, you're probably not in the middle of Texas. So you can, using trilateration, which is the modern form of triangulation, and just also which towers are you talking to, you can approximate location using cell towers. Then there's GPS, the old school location determining method. This is a one-way data stream from satellites down to Earth. Uses time, signal strength, distance to calculate where you're located. Because it's one way, if you open up your phone in the middle of the wilderness with no signal, it'll still be able to tell you where your GPS location is, because satellites are always beaming down the signal to everywhere. However, it's one way and it's easy to block. And then the last two are Wi-Fi and Bluetooth data. So Wi-Fi and Bluetooth devices have unique address, and a lot of them don't move location. So for instance, you may pick up a Bluetooth address of a smart TV in your neighbor's house while walking down the street, and chances are that TV is not going to move. So you can use this data to approximate where you're at. And the same thing with Wi-Fi names. With the Wi-Fi SSID and MAC address, routers tend to not move around that much. And so if you know the Wi-Fi names, you can probably approximate your location. The old school way of doing this was Google drove around with cars with big antennas and they just picked up Wi-Fi names along with their Street View data. Now it all gets bundled into like this all-in-one location services. So you have the option to constantly be uploading Bluetooth and Wi-Fi data to Google or Apple, or just not be able to use maps at all. So most people, because they're funneled into like this all or nothing choice, will choose to just share their data with Google or Apple. So the way it's supposed to work is you have location services on and you're constantly uploading GPS, Wi-Fi SSIDs and MAC, Bluetooth cell data up to Google or Apple, and they send you back location data. Note, I don't think documentation on this is public, so I am somewhat inferencing how this works. So if there's any errors, it's possible because they don't really share their algorithms. So this is how you can possibly trick the system. So what if you starve the endpoint of GPS data, of Wi-Fi, of all data that's floating around in the airwaves, and then selectively feed it, hand a sort of select list of Wi-Fi SSIDs and MAC addresses, and that, since it's the only data Google and Apple are getting, they send you back a location calculated based on that information. So how this could be set up is you have a Faraday cage, or in my case, a Faraday bag. And inside that bag, you have something to transmit the SSIDs and MACs and the endpoint. And so inside this bag, all GPS, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, cell, all these signals get lost. And the only thing the cell phone has to base its location is the Wi-Fi SSIDs you're spamming at it. Of course, it needs to be connected to the internet, so you need to wire an Ethernet cable in there. But that is how it works in theory. So setting it up it will look something like this. So first you have your Faraday bag right here. And inside the bag, you have the phone, a Wi-Fi dongle that is capable of being in monitor mode. So if you're looking for a specific Wi-Fi dongle, there's packet injection and monitor mode. It needs to be capable of at least monitor mode, which I purchased one that wasn't, so be wary of that. Then it's easiest to just attach it to a USB extension cord. You'll need an adapter to connect to the phone, to connect a mouse, and then internet. However, there is a slight issue. So if you run a wire inside and out of a Faraday cage, it basically acts as an antenna, which you don't have to know much about Faraday cages to know that's the exact opposite of what you're trying to achieve. And it's really, this is probably the most annoying part of this entire setup, is dealing with the cable running in and out. So there's a few, and then on top of that, anything attached to that cable can also act as an antenna. So for instance, you plug this into, you have a cable, and then you plug the cable into the adapter. That adapter, because it has electronic parts, unless it filters the noise, can also transmit. So you can shield the cable, but it'll still be picking up noise through the adapter. So there's a few ways you can try to work around this. The first is just purchasing shielding and just trying to cover everything with a mesh shield. This I have tried, and it definitely helps, but it's not 100%. It's maybe like 50%. It makes a difference, but it won't stop everything. Then there's USB isolators. So this to me is untested because first I have it right here. And the male and female ends for my application are on the wrong side. Plus I'm dealing with an Apple device. So the amount, I believe it's one, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. I think I need a total of 5 adapters attached to this USB in order to work it into the cable I need, because it's going lightning to lightning, and they just don't sell adapters in a way that would let me do it in 2. So this is untested, simply because it requires so many adapters that I at this time do not have. And then the last thing, what I believe to be the best solution, but also very expensive and not in my budget, is media converters. So essentially running a fiber optic cable through the Faraday cage, so you don't have any wires running in and out and nothing to act as an antenna. You would also need some sort of power inside the Faraday cage, and this in general is just a very, very expensive setup that should work, but I have not tested it for this research. Okay, and so finally, it doesn't take that many commands using MDK4 or AirMon-NG, so you can simply change an interface into monitor mode. So in this screenshot, you can see that the interface is WLAN 0 mon. That's the monitor mode for the little USB Wi-Fi dongle. You have on the left-hand side, you see this list of just MAC address space SSID. Pretty simple. You can run out and do a scan, pick up Wi-Fi, or you can use an API like Wiggle to create a list of MACs and SSIDs for the location you want. And then sudo mdk4 interface b-v and then the text file. And with that, Simon can beat the geofencing. So I'm going to launch into this demo. Hopefully this will work. It was working beforehand, but it's also very finicky because of the signal leaking issue using a wire going inside and outside of the Faraday cage. So let me try to get this set up real quick. Okay. So on the right-hand side, you can see the cell phone sharing screen. Oh, did I just kill it? There we go. And my current location it shows is I am telling it I'm in the middle of Colorado. So let's change this to say I am in Florida. So picking up a different list of Wi-Fis and spamming that into the Faraday cage. And then let me see if I can arrange this so you can actually see the cage itself. Give me 1 second. All right, hopefully you can see the Faraday cage vaguely, and you can see that it has now changed my location to be in Florida. Sorry, too many screens.
Let me see if I can make your video a little bigger because we're not.
Yeah. I'm trying to navigate the computer with one hand, hold the camera with the other.
All right, I pinned your video so we could see it now.
Yeah. So, and then let's try another one. Let's try to, so notice the IP of this seems completely irrelevant. I'm still using the IP that I have in Washington State. So let's jump countries. Let's go to another continent using the same trick, but again, everything is still coming from my Washington State internet. And let's try to zoom out so we can.
So you're in Washington State. You were pretending you were in Denver first, or?
Yeah, if I stop spamming, it will. The thing is, it's not the end of the world if it happens, but I'm trying to do this without actually flashing my brother's apartment's location. So I'm doing all spamming and just jumping in between. Simply because I prefer not to upload my actual location to the internet for all to see.
Yeah, no problem.
But yeah, if I stop running these spams, the little snippets of, there we go, and I am now in South America. And that is it.
So is this basic, so it's getting it through the Wi-Fi that, the geo coordinates through the Wi-Fi settings?
It is, so basically with location services, you know, when you go into settings to Wi-Fi and it's like, it's scanning for network and it shows you a list of networks.
Yeah,
So let's say you went out to the street and you did it and you saw network X, Y, and Z. Those networks have been there. They're constantly being uploaded by everyone who walks by with a cell phone to Google. Google says, okay, networks X, Y, and Z with X strength, Y strength, and Z strength. That means you're in this GPS location. This can be useful if you're, say, I don't know, going in somewhere where the GPS signals don't quite make it because you're in a building or something. But because Google's constantly collecting all of this data, they can say, oh, well, based on these Wi-Fi addresses, you're here. This is just spamming those Wi-Fi addresses. You don't need to make like actual access points. You're just sending out MAC address and SSID. And so the phone picks it up. It hears these MAC and SSIDs through the Ethernet cable I've connected and adapted. It will upload it to Google or Apple, and then it comes back with a perceived location. So this does not work if you're not connected to the internet. So you have to be connected to the internet. And yeah, does that explanation make sense?
yeah, so you're overriding the actual internet's, what your IP is telling you where you're at, right? And
Yes. So location services, as far as I can tell, in the little notice that they say what you're agreeing to with location services, it says nothing about IP. And as I just demoed, my IP didn't change through any of that. My IP did not change through any of that. So, you know, just reading between the lines, I can assume that IP does not matter.
it's cool. Nice.
Any other questions?
Have you found a way to do that with the vehicle's GPS?
Ooh, with a vehicle's GPS, so I did look into that. So I think that vehicles GPS don't quite work the same. It's not like, short version is I don't know, but this whole system only works if I am blocking the GPS signal with a Faraday cage. So the chances of you putting a Faraday cage over a vehicle is pretty small. I don't think you could pop a Faraday cage on top of someone's SUV without them noticing. But
You
I
just need
did
to change the fair, you just need to put it over the GPS receiver, so as long as you find that.
So
cover
for
that.
one, I don't know if the vehicles use SSIDs and MACs and Bluetooth addresses in the same way that iPhones and tablets do. If they do, one possible way to attack I thought of is, what if you just jam the GPS, jam anything else that would interfere, so for instance, cell, and then use targeted Wi-Fi, you know, like a Cantenna or goodness, what is the other one called? That for long range Wi-Fi that looks like a long spiky tube. I'm blanking, a Yagi. Or use a Yagi and then spam certain Wi-Fi and Mac, and that might work, but I don't even know if cars use location services in the same way that iPhone and Android do. So that one I'm not sure, but it might be possible.
Thank you.
For vehicles, they use CarPlay. Like, I'm curious if my car even has a GPS, because I would think the signal of knowing, because it has CarPlay, so I would think the signal of knowing where I am comes from the phone.
Well, does your car have a navigation system?
I don't know, because I don't use CarPlay.
It might. A lot of different systems on vehicles are collecting all kinds of data, which could include GPS. So we've been talking about possibly looking into that, trying to figure out what all information your vehicle is collecting, and then potentially modifying that to, your advantage.
Does your computer, does the
Another comment or thought I had on this was, what about shimmying like location? So for instance, what if instead of blocking, this wouldn't work for a long distance, this wouldn't work for, say, jumping from Colorado to Florida, but one thing you might be able to do, again, have not tested this, is instead of completely changing the car's GPS signal, what if you could modify it just slightly? So maybe it moves like a quarter mile to east or west, or north or south. So you feed it Wi-Fi data, and it's, constantly uploading, doing this calculation of where am I? And so it gets this GPS data, it says I'm about here, it gets to the cell tower, I'm about here. And then within that scope, you shift it left or right based on the Wi-Fi addresses. Does that work? I have no idea, but it is something I did think about.
Well, it's two different types of GPSs, right? One is just actual GPS that's on the car that has that's actually probably talking with actual satellites and getting time locations. The other one's actually saying, hey, I don't have real satellite communications to see these time messages. Let me just send all of the Wi-Fi data on the internet to Google or Apple and see what's the approximate geolocation I'm at right now, right? So it's two different systems. So
Take both of them into account.
I was watching a bunch of MAC addresses, like when he was doing when he was doing the process, when the computer was doing the process, I was watching a bunch of MAC addresses. Were those MAC addresses from the Wi-Fi towers, or they were from different devices?
I think those were the beacons from the actual devices. How'd you get those beacons?
Yeah.
How did I get that?
Is that like
I
a
wrote a
Remo or
script
something?
I got those Wi-Fi SSIDs and Macs by writing a script to basically run a scan and then pull out that data, and then walking around the neighborhood with a laptop.
Oh, okay.
Holy.
Another very important note on this. The quantity matters. So if you have, say, 7 SSIDs, it's not going to work. If you have 50, that to me is like the bare minimum, but you really want like 100 to 200 to be on the safer end. It has to, because it's still like, even in these demos, the local Wi-Fi, like the Wi-Fi of this house, the Wi-Fi of the neighbors, that is still being picked up. And even a little bit of GPS signal, a little bit of cell tower data, that is all leaking through. And it kind of seems like a numbers game. I am guessing that on the other end of these calculations, there's sort of a weighted average type algorithm where it says, okay, we'll try to calculate this, and then we have a tiny bit of data that doesn't match up, and it gets weighted, and it seems that the more Wi-Fi addresses you have, the more heavily it gets weighted. So I'd recommend having 100 to 200, which for me meant I couldn't sit in my house and I had to pick up my laptop and walk around the neighborhood looking weird. So that is how I picked it up. You can also use Wiggle API, but for this I wanted fresher addresses because I think Wiggle is crowdsourced and is going to be a little more out of date. And I was going cross country anyway, so it didn't matter.
Oh, I was like wondering, I thought maybe you probably those I know with Ponagachis that people upload their beacons and stuff that they capture on their Ponagachis, but I thought there was you could get them from one of those repos that I think they're publicly. I don't know if they're public or
Depends on what the person does with it.
yeah. But probably do something like that too.
I wasn't aware Tamagotchi had GPS. I thought it was just a standalone thing.
It's
No,
the Wi-Fi it's like a Wi-Fi Tamagotchi, but it's actually collecting beacons so that you could crack them and later. So it's actually collecting beacons for so that you could do a Wi-Fi pen test or something later offline, right? So come back and use
Oh, okay. Sorry. What did you say this was called? Not a Tamagotchi, a what?
Ponagachi.
Ponagotchi.
Oh, okay. I interpreted that as the actual,
Tamagotchi.
yeah.
But yeah, cool. Any other questions?
It's a thought that I could see a benefit of this for iOS devices because they're harder to jailbreak, but I would say like rooting an Android device is not, to me, is less difficult than doing all this. Yeah,
And yes, but sometimes you don't want the device to be jailbroken. So let's just say that theoretically, one of your devices was taken as evidence. A jailbroken device that is sending GPS data that doesn't match up might be considered suspect. But if the device isn't jailbroken, then that GPS data might be considered more trustworthy. So in theory, if someone was saying, oh, well, he was over here, and the GPS data backs that up versus.
Also, isn't routing like takes away the warranty of your cell phone or stuff like that, right?
Could, yeah, I think a lot of companies.
Because T-Mobile for the moment, not even with iPhone, for the moment you do a little switch into what their normal standard is, your warranty is gone.
That's true.
and I also forgot
And the
about-
other thing on that is, I mean, various like security policies will just not allow you to log in flat out if you have a jailbroken device. So it's one of the checks, like every time you log in, it has security software on the endpoint to say, is this device jailbroken? And if your corporate device is jailbroken, they and they don't want you to connect to the rest of the network. So that's where that was mainly coming from, not so much the integrity of the GPS, but rather you probably don't want a jailbroken device connecting to your secured network, especially if you can SIM swap from that network.
That's true.
I forgot about if the device is corporate issue. Yeah, that makes sense.
Especially if you put your personal with the company stuff in your personal thing, that the moment they find that it's jailbroken or rooted.
Let me just start spamming Wi-Fi signals to my phone so I could say that I'm over in over here while I'm doing something malicious over there.
I
Yeah,
know rooting an Android device, it's kind of a cat and mouse game too, right? That like, I think the Pokemon Go app will check to see if your device is jailbroken, but then somebody will make a jailbreak app to fool that as well, then it's a constant cat and mouse game too.
wouldn't trust a jailbroken app from a
So,
different app store. You're getting a lot
so
of
Pokemon Go is actually how I started into this project. So I don't know, and I don't think Niantic is going to advertise this information, but I believe it is my sort of looking at it from outside without being able to see the code. I believe that Niantic uses an impossible travel model, so it may not matter if you're using this like no jailbreaking spoof location trick.
No, you just wanted to make it
go
all the
from
way to
China
Japan to
to-
get that YouTube, that Mewtwo, right?
I think if you're gonna spoof on Pokemon Go, you need to think about the impossible travel time models, and if you play it right and don't, if you jump from UK to Japan in 0.3 seconds and then show up in the middle of the US and then go to China, like if you jump around a lot, it doesn't really matter how you're spoofing location. It doesn't matter if you're using a cracked app, it may not matter because you're setting off their impossible travel time model, and they'll pick it up and ban your account. So even with this trick, keep that in mind, and make sure that there is, if you're gonna spoof, you put like a day in between each spoof, so you don't mess up this model.
Shit, you might need longer than a day if you're going from here to Japan.
Can I ask a request? I'm sorry, this is gonna be sound stupid, but I always wonder. Can you spoof it? Because you said that you can do any location. Can you try to do Nepal or nearby Mountain Everest? Just by curiosity.
Oh, well, there's
Are
no-
there a lot of Wi-Fi signals in Nepal or Mount Everest?
I think
I would
Nepal
need
has-
the max and
has
SSIDs first, and I'm not
Wi-Fi.
sure if there's just a bunch of routers sitting on Mount Everest. It might be, but-
There will be.
But that would be a heck of a try.
Bo, do you have any contact information? Can we get in touch with you? Like Twitter or anything?
I guess I could post a LinkedIn. One
you
second,
could
I did not think of that.
Also, you could chat with Bo over on our Discord. I'll throw an invite to our Discord on the whiteboard here.
Okay, that works.
All right, and
Yep, on Discord, I am collagen peptides. And my profile picture looks vaguely like me, so hopefully that helps. And let me pull up before my phone dies my LinkedIn link. Give me 1 second here.
here's our. It's UW capital W.
All right, and here is the LinkedIn link.
You want to toss it onto the Discord, because yeah, put your LinkedIn on the Discord.
Okay, just general chat.
Yeah, in the general chat. That
Okay,
way,
just first name / last. There we go. Yeah, and if you're curious to try this, happy to answer any questions. It was a fun project. Waste made a few bad purchases that probably cost more than I should have spent on this project. So I'm happy to help steer you in the directions of what not to buy.
cool. Thank you.
What is that thing you said?
That's our what I put there, that's our the invite code for Discord.
Okay.
So if you want to jump onto our Discord and if you want to chat with Bo about anything that we presented about, or anything else in general, there's plenty of channels on our Discord. You can see here, like there's our Hack Madrid, our book list, our events, our random chat. We have some CTF channels, some job posting channels, some training channels that we post about that have some free training and interesting YouTube videos like this one, which was about building. Let's build a GPT from scratch and code spelled out. This guy was really good about talking about building a language model. So if you want to learn about that, we have a bunch of other sites here. Our channels for. Oops.
Some of the links are there, but.
Yeah, so I can't guarantee all the links are going to be working. You know? It's just the nature of the beast, right?
Gotcha.
But we do go to Las Vegas, and in a couple of weeks we're going for DEF CON. So if you guys are going to DEF CON, be happy to meet up with you guys, have a lunch. I'm gonna be with my son, so I'm a DEF CON goon. I go over there and hang out. So I'll be wearing a red shirt and helping people out. And
Oh, when you say we, what is we?
the group, channel. If you guys want to go, like
No,
The Hack Miami crew.
yeah,
Miami.
okay, so.
yeah, like we have our Vegas 2023 channel here where we're talking about what parties to go to and stuff. So you could always jump in there and see what.
This
why
is
not?
my first time at that.
Yeah.
I just saw it on Meetup.
Oh yeah,
So,
perfect.
so there's actual cool hack my hair.
Yeah.
And what's,
Oh, we
Oh,
just
okay.
talk infosec
Yeah,
stuff
okay.
and information security, talk about hacking, anything general info security, infosec stuff. So if you want to talk about Linux, we have Linux channels. So ask questions. I do a lot of Python programming. I do a lot of malware analysis here. Let me turn off the recording. All right, and
Thank you, Bo.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Where's the record button? Oh,